Hello everybody. It's nice to see you here. I'm Raimonds Simanovskis. I'm the founder of eazyBI, and I will tell you a little bit different type of use case where we used from the whole Pentaho suite of technologies. We used just Pentaho Mondrian engine to build our own business intelligence application, and in particular I'll tell about how we are doing it with Atlassian Jira and how we have become one of the most popular add-ons on the Atlassian marketplace. And so those who are tweeting, I'm rsim on Twitter, so you can mention me, and on GitHub as well, so I will mention some projects on GitHub as well. We are already in Germany since Monday. We visited several other events, and on Monday, Tuesday we were in Cologne, and so I would like to visit some art museums, and I visited Ludwig Museum in Cologne, and there I found one picture that probably many recognize. That's Piet Mondrian, author of this painting. But what was very interesting that I read the description of the painting, and it said Tableau 1. So it means that Piet Mondrian already created the first version of Tableau in the year 1921. So I didn't know that. Okay, so now let's get back to what is eazyBI. So our use case is that we, comparing maybe with the Pentaho suite of products, which targets is more for developers, BI developers to build BI solutions. In our case, we mostly target some more standardized use cases for key users, power users, so that they, without the help of programmers, could build some analytical solutions, reports, charts, dashboards. And we focus on several standardized ETL data sources. So I'll mention like our most popular is a data source with integration with Atlassian Jira, but we have also integrations with the Basecamp high-res applications, Zendesk, as well as you can do simple data imports also from other SQL databases or from some REST API data sources. And then end users, key users can create reports, pivot table reports with drag and drop functionality. Then they can create many different chart types, and then from these charts are created dashboards, as well as we embed that some more power users can learn how to write MDX formulas and write their own calculated measures, and then we dynamically generate and add them to Mondrian schemas. So the summary of main eazyBI components are, so as I mentioned, that there are many standardized source data imports. I will show later some example how it looks for the Jira case, as well as also when we are doing some add-on for Jira, the users can use it also for other needs, like import some data from REST API sources or SQL databases, or upload some files. And then we in case of Jira data, for example, we access it using Jira APIs, and then we transform the data and store into the star schema, and then generate a Mondrian data schema with measures and dimensions that can be used. And then from these measures and dimensions, users can create pivot table style reports, charts, and as well as I showed, create calculated measures using MDX language. And then when they have created many reports, they can create also dashboard pages in eazyBI. And then most often, especially in Atlassian, users are already using either Jira dashboards or Confluence pages, where they publish a lot of different information, and then there is standardized way how you can publish these eazyBI reports or charts or dashboards in Jira dashboards or Confluence pages, as well as, if necessary, as iframes also in any other HTML page. So, shortly about some main technical components. how we have built it. We are building this application as a Ruby on Rails application, but using JRuby, which is Ruby implementation on Java virtual machine, and that allows us to embed Mondrian OAuth engine as a Java library, and then the front end is built in in JavaScript using several JavaScript frameworks like using jQuery, Backbone.js, highcharts for charting. And in the backend, so as we are supporting all 4 major databases which are typically used by Jira customers, so we support, it can be MySQL, Postgres, Oracle, or Microsoft SQL. And in previous Pentaho meetings in Antwerp, I already had told about our open source component, which is Mondrian OAuth library for JRuby, which is available in my GitHub account, Mondrian OAuth, at my RSIM account, which provides Ruby API for generating Mondrian schemas, as well as which provides API to create dynamic queries. As well as we have created many additional user-defined functions, as we quite often write some different additional calculated measures, so that we could write them with shorter syntax. We have created many additional user-defined functions, and those last year I presented, and there's also reference with implementation that you can access from that URL. So, the most successful our integration was for creating the solution for Jira reporting. As Jira is a very powerful tool, so how many of you are using Jira? Yeah, so half probably. So Jira is a very powerful application where you can define a lot of additional custom fields, custom workflows, different extension points. But the standard reporting capabilities there are quite limited. There are some standard gadgets that you can put on their Jira dashboards in some Jira software or services. There are some standard reports with some customization capabilities. But when those more advanced Jira implementations, which have put a lot of additional data, have created custom workflows, added many additional add-ons to Jira, so then they are having a problem that they can put the data in, but they can't get the data out. So that was, as I have been also using Jira since very long time ago, I knew that might be a potential problem that would need some standardized solution, and this was currently is our most successful application of eazyBI. So I will now switch to a short demo to show how it looks like. I will switch. We are distributing. So eazyBI is available both for Jira Server, which is installed in the customer premises, as well as on Jira Cloud when it's integrating with our cloud. But if you are using it on Jira Server, so then it's distributed as a typical Jira plugin that you can install, which will install all the application as well as including Mondrian engine there. And then there will be, when you install it, so there is a separate eazyBI tab where you can get the full screen eazyBI user interface, where you can create the reports and charts, and then later back you can publish them in Jira dashboards or Confluence pages. So in eazyBI you have many so-called eazyBI accounts, and these are separate. In each account you can import a separate set of data. It will generate automatically a separate database schema where the imported data are stored. Then you can create a separate set of reports, dashboards, and grant which users or user groups can access it. So all the user authentication is integrated with a Jira user integration. So the first thing is that you can import the data in a selected eazyBI account. So as I mentioned, there could be many different data sources. So in case of Jira, so you basically can see what projects are available to the user who wants to import the data. So there are some additional parameters. You can schedule how frequently you would like to run incremental data refresh. some other options, as well as you can see the list of all custom fields that you have defined in Jira, and then select which custom fields you would like to use in your eazyBI reports. Then after that, so there will be several sample reports created that you can use to explore eazyBI capabilities. For example, there's some sample created versus resolved issues, where you can see some issues created, resolved by time period, open issues at the end of that time period, average resolution days, and play with some selection criteria by projects or issue types. But let me show you how you can, if you want to create a new report, how it looks like. So if you create a new report, so we create in case of Jira, so we create already a quite extensive standard data model that you can use for data analysis. So there are a lot of standard measures like number of issues created, resolved, unresolved, hours estimated, spent, number of workflow transitions, or days, time spent in some workflow statuses, or story points created in a particular sprint. And then you can analyze these measures by different dimensions like projects, assignees, issue types, priority, and so on. So, for example, if we would like to analyze currently unresolved issues, we could select the measure issues due on columns, and then I will use drag the priority to rows. So I see that here I have some more than 5,000 unresolved issues, so I can expand them by detailed priorities. If I don't want this all line, I can remove it. Then you can add some dimensions as these page filter dimensions. For example, I move projects and as page filter, and then I see either all projects, or I can select one or several particular projects. Then you can add additional dimensions to rows or columns. For example, I would like to see the unresolved issues by priority and assignee, as well as put the status of the issue on columns and expand to detailed statuses, and see how many issues are by priority, assignee, and by status. As these are just unresolved issues, so there's no resolved and closed status. You can easily hide any empty columns. Then there are many other filtering criteria, ordering criteria, as well as you can do some conditional cell formatting. For example, let's highlight large number of unresolved issues by too small screen. So apply this conditional cell formatting. So if you have if you see some total number of issues in some cell, you can click on that cell and drill through the list of individual issues which are included in that total. And from here you can click and navigate to the detailed Jira issue page where you can see the further details. And then when you've created these reports, you can save them and give it a name, and then later open and see the results. As well as when you have selected the data you're interested in, you can visualize them using different chart types, some bar charts, line charts, pie charts, and easily switch between different visualization styles, like to stack bar chart or vertical bar chart, or show or hide data labels. And then further on, if you want to customize some visual appearance, click on some data series and customize like color or something like that. And finally, let me save it as a bar chart. When you've created these many reports, you can create also dashboard pages, where in one dashboard you can select I will select the report and chart that I just created, specify some layout options, expand, preview it, and for example, I want to make this all project selection as a common selection for the whole dashboard page, and save the dashboard. And now you can have for each selected project, you see the updates. And finally, you can export these dashboards also to PDF or just individual reports to PDF. You can create email subscriptions. For example, you can select that I want this dashboard page each working day at 8 a.m. in the morning, export it to PDF and send to me via email. And finally, when you have created these reports, you can publish them back into eazyBI, back into the Jira dashboards or Confluence pages. So then you can add them as gadgets to these pages, where I can select that I want to, for example, publish eazyBI dashboard on a Jira dashboard page, select from the eazyBI account that is available, which dashboard I would like to publish, and then it's rendered inside the Jira dashboard page or within a Confluence page. And finally, as I initially already mentioned, that in addition to these pre-calculated measures, there are also these, you can create these calculated measures where we ship with, so we ship with many standard calculations for calculating some averages or things like that. Then users can learn how to write these formulas by themselves, and then we dynamically add and generate new Mondrian schemes which add these corresponding calculations there. So this was a short live demo of how it looks like. And just wanted to mention some couple other typical use cases. What are the most frequent standard use cases? So one is so if customers are using Jira software and planning their projects by sprints, by story points, we extract all the history of how many story points were committed at the beginning of the sprint, how many were changed during the sprint, how many were added or removed, and how many were completed at the end of the sprint. And then they can track, managers can track how well the committed story points are matching the actual ones, or measure how the velocity has been changing over the sprints or over the releases. Then for Jira Service Desk, which is for service desk projects, where in Jira it's possible to define different SLAs, service level agreements. For example, what should be the target times for time to first response or time to resolution, or other these metrics. And then these could be analyzed in eazyBI, where we can track how many met the target SLAs, how many didn't, and then drill further on until the individual issues which met or didn't met these criteria. But then if you are using just Jira core functionality, then you can do the reports by any Jira fields, as well as we extract and import all the Jira issue change history, and we are reconstructing historically how many issues were in any particular workflow status. And then you can report historically how many issues were, for example, in some selected workflow statuses, and then you drill down to the detailed issues and find out visually maybe where are some bottlenecks in your projects where issues are staying for a long time. Then in recent years, as Atlassian Marketplace is very dynamic, Atlassian has very growing ecosystem, and many new vendors are adding new add-ons to the standard Jira functionality. For example, there are now very many test management add-ons for Jira, and then we have integrated with several of the top test management add-ons for Jira and extract the data from their additional data, and then customers can analyze it, how many test cases were created, what's the current status, which are executed, not executed, what is the test coverage, etc., and then combine them with the total project metrics. And then there are several time management add-ons. There's some standard time management functionality, some time management additional add-on, some asset management add-on where you can store some technical assets or any other assets like your servers or network infrastructure and analyze these data, and so on. So there are, it's quite often customers can use and combine many different data into single reports or dashboards. And finally, as I mentioned, that for these other data sources, we provide some simple import mechanism where you can write, for example, some SQL query or query some REST API URL and paginate through it, and then map which return fields are some dimensions, some measures, and then you can either combine with Jira data or just add as a separate data cube data and use it. So as I mentioned, that one of the major success factors for us was that we published that on the Atlassian Marketplace. And so I would say that Atlassian Marketplace is probably the best business application marketplace for smaller vendors who need help with the larger vendors. And there are very many successful smaller vendors which have grown, so Atlassian user base is growing, and so they are helping a lot vendors to market and publish their add-ons. And so I started alone 6.5 years ago. So now we are a 15 people team, and we are in the top 10 paid add-on list for Jira, and so it's mostly because of the Atlassian Marketplace. So this was the overview that I wanted to provide, and if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer. Yeah.
So you offer a special kind of ETL layer. What if a customer tells you, yeah, I have JSON files or LDAP or some other data source which would be provided by PDI? Did you think about integrating PDI as a...
So what we have been thinking that, so as I understand, PDI, if it gets some data, it could expose it as a REST API source, right? And then if it exposes it as a REST API, so then we could connect to this REST API source and import the data into when it's already transformed and cleaned, and then import and create the corresponding custom schema. So that would be a solution. So currently, honestly, so the majority, our user base is quite different from the probably typical Pentaho users. And one thing is also that well, these larger and these more powerful platforms are used to create solutions for critical business systems, and all BI developers are working on some core system analytics. And then these business support systems like Jira, so quite often they lack some programmers which could create gather the data and create, and then the typical solutions that you are replacing are Excel, where some users were just trying to export data from these systems into Excel and then somehow to create that. So that's what we are seeing as a niche for us, is for those use cases where key users could do it more by themselves without the need of BI developers to build these analytical systems.
Yep. Do you create Mondrian 3 or 4 schemes, or is it configurable?
No, so kind of when I started investigating that, so that was when there was Mondrian 3 and there was Mondrian 4 was some experimental branch at that time, so I selected Mondrian 3, and now it's, as we have thousands of customers, so to regenerate it somehow differently, it would be very hard. So currently we are staying with Mondrian 3, and so we kind of are taking some, as we are then dynamically, maybe what we are showing some as data cubes, these are actually virtual data cubes, and we create dynamically some subcubes, non-visible subcubes, to take over, so to make a better solution for some limitations which would be easier in Mondrian 4. So basically, we have invested too much time to build this Mondrian 3 based solution that it would be currently quite hard to change.
Yeah, and it's all years in the making, for everything.
Yeah, so it's not quite so. And looking that we are following what's happening, and so actually we are also quite active in. We find quite often some weird edge cases of Mondrian, and so just in this year, so we have reported 2 weird edge cases, and so yeah, it's good that they have been also fixed in a couple months, and so now fixed in the latest version, and so we are trying to be active contributor back to. So to improve the Mondrian engine. So currently what I'm seeing that it seems that Mondrian 3 is getting all the latest updates and Mondrian 4 is some strange state. I don't understand whether it's what will happen next. Any other question?
Is it possible to create custom visualizations like using JavaScript?
Yeah, so we have created an extension point that you basically can write your custom. We can, when querying the data, we just give you the JavaScript objects which have all the results, and there is an extension point where you can write your custom JavaScript code. We have provided some example, for example, how to create a Google Map based chart, and then you can investigate and contact us. We can provide some help with that. So ourselves, so we're trying to be limit that we are creating the most popular needs, and we don't want, so we don't have an objective to be as good as Tableau or even a Pentaho analyzer, probably with all the options. So we more by default will concentrate on the default needs, but then if someone really needs, we have some extension points, and some have done some additional visualizations. Any other question?
Yes.
Yeah.
When you are analyzing data from service desk, for example, and you have ticket data, how do you handle all the status changes in a multi-dimensional model? So, for example, you have a ticket and you would like to see all the ticket history, all the, all the changes regarding priorities, responsibilities, and stuff like that. And then, from my experience, this is really hard to model in a cube. So. Do we have a good approach to do this?
Yeah, so how we do, we store, we import and store, we store the changes. Okay. So that, for example, if an issue was created, so there is some +1 to that status. Then if it changes the status, then it's -1 for that status, +1 to that status. As we don't have so huge data sources, so then to calculate how many issues were in particular status, we just do the calculation from the beginning of time until today, do the cumulative sum, how many were these status changes, and then in that way we don't pre-calculate these historical values, we just store the changes, and then we do the cumulative sums from the beginning of time until that end of that period. So that makes so then it's easier for incremental data changes, so, and also in terms of refresh, in terms of data storage as well as in some cases also that it shouldn't, as we can't do just the snapshots at the end of the day, as some are interested, for example, for when changing scope of the sprint. Some are sometimes starting the sprint and already on that day, so starting to making some changes, and they want to see exactly like that what has been changed. So more practical approach when you don't have too much data is just store these changes and then dynamically calculate the aggregate.
Okay, good. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. And then if you have any questions, you can catch me later as well. Thank you.